Some of you will admit that you're old enough to recognize this dish detergent ad. Joy dish soap. You all had a bottle of it in your kitchen. And in this marketing campaign, the slogan, as you'll see printed there, is "Your joy shows." And down at the bottom, it's a bit more difficult to read, but what it says there is, "What a nice reflection on you." You see in the picture, it's again, maybe you can make it out, how that perfectly clean plate reflects the person's face. So the idea was that spotless dishes made you look good. Your hard work, your neatness, it all shined through on that sparkly plate. A soap ad, I think, reveals to us something about how we think about joy in our lives. A lot of times we treat joy like that reflective, clean dish. It's something that is about us. We feel the joy in us, inside us. We think that joy is merely a personal, happy moment. It's a good vibe. So maybe you get something, your favorite gift you've been wanting, you feel joy inside. You score a goal in hockey, you feel joy inside. You're just hanging out with your friends, you feel joy inside. We chase after things that bring us joy. Nothing wrong with that. But it's a problem if we only think of joy as an experience for us, inside of us. In that case, it has the risk of becoming something that we consume. What if joy is something bigger than that? What if it's not just a feeling that you keep inside, but something that you do? Now, you've heard this sermon many times before. Think about love. Love is not just a noun, it's not just an outcome, it's also a verb. It's a thing that we do. It's not just a mushy feeling in your heart after 34 years of marital bliss. It's also about how you treat one another, how you show up for them. Love is a verb. You do love. If you only have the feeling without the action, or the action without the feeling, then your love isn't quite complete. We all get that. Well, what if joy is the same way? What if it's not just a noun, something that you have, but also a verb, something that you make? We often talk about peace of mind. We get that. It's a feeling inside of us. But we also understand how peace is a verb. We know what it means to be a peacemaker, someone who actively brings calm and agreement, stability into a messy world. They just don't feel peace, they make peace happen. So similarly, if we only see joy as something that we feel, something that's just for ourselves, just like that reflection in the dish, we're missing out on a huge part of what joy can be. We're missing the chance to be joy makers. To be a joy maker in the world, to be a reason that someone else smiles, to be that spark that brightens someone else's day. So this brings us to Paul's letter. The idea of becoming joy makers starts to touch on what Paul is saying in the scripture to the Galatians. You read it. It started out with by contrast. By contrast. The fruit of the Spirit is, says love, and then we get to today's two words, joy and peace. So when we live by God's Spirit, the Spirit doesn't just fill us with good experiences, good feelings inside. It works in us and through us to produce these fruit, like joy, that are meant to flow into the world. It's the Spirit, according to Paul, that nudges us to move beyond simply feeling joy in our hearts, to actively spreading it and making it happen for others. So that's how we begin to live by contrast. We make joy in the world, and that throws our love into sharp contrast with a world that just thinks about joy and love as something that you consume. Now, let's go back to that dish detergent. Not just joy, but you know all the different dish detergent brands. For a long time, dish detergents contained something called phosphates. These chemicals were wonderful at making your dishes sparkle, getting rid of those annoying spots. The scientists figured out that they also caused a problem. That when those phosphates went down our drains and into our rivers and our lakes, they acted like super fertilizer for the algae. And this caused huge, gross algae blooms, thick green gunk that covered the water, blocking sunlight, interrupting photosynthesis for what was beneath the water. And then when the algae would die, they would use up all the dissolved oxygen in the water, and that would choke out fish life in the water. So basically, phosphates led to choking out, killing off fish in the water. So around 2010, the year 2010, after a lot of research and calls from environmental groups, this is an American story, down in the States, they started banning phosphates from dish detergents in a number of American states. And the dish detergent companies started to change their formulas. And that seems like a good thing, right? Protecting our lakes and our rivers. But here's where it gets interesting and, dare I say, a little bit crazy. For some people, especially a group called the Tea Party, do you remember the Tea Party? Do you remember what the Tea Party became? They morphed into MAGA, perhaps you've heard of it. But a group called the Tea Party, who are libertarian conservatives in the US, they were not happy with this ban, and it became a big deal for them. They argued that it was government overreach. They said, who are these scientists and politicians to tell us what kind of soap we can use in our homes? We want our spotless wine glasses. Don't be telling me what I can and can't use to clean it. Or put differently, you're not the boss of me. So for them, tiny spots on their dishes, when they look at their wine glasses and hold them up to the light and not see their faces reflected back perfectly because of those spots, for them, that was a symbol of someone else telling them how they could and could not live. And they were upset about it. Now think about that for a second. For these people, their personal joy, the joy of seeing perfectly spotless dishes reflecting their perfect faces, was more important than the harm it caused to the rivers and the well-being of the fish life. Waters that everyone had to share. There is no joy left in a bottle of joy if it meant a few spots on their glassware, even if it helped the actual world outside their kitchen sink. Their definition of joy was stuck inside their own house, completely ignoring the algae and the dying fish. It was a classic, we talked about this, me first, me only attitude, a focus on personal convenience and what I want, by contrast to what was happening in a shared world. Now, the real world example of by contrast that Paul is talking about comes to play in here. When we prioritize only our comfort, our own spotless dishes, our own immediate feeling of joy, we're living according to the ways of the world, ways that sometimes can be selfish and harmful to others and to God's creation. But the fruit of the Spirit, Paul's teaching us, like joy and peace, calls us to something different. It calls us to a joy that isn't just about me, but about we. When God's Spirit lives in us, that joy isn't just a private feeling. It's a power that pushes us to care for the world, to work for good of all, to choose actions that bring true life and well-being, even if it means a little less sparkle on our own wine glasses. And so this Spirit-led joy makes us, by contrast, people in this world, living differently and showing different ways. And that brings us to a much deeper, much richer understanding of joy. That's Paul's claim, one that transcends personal feelings and even actively living in the world. Because we can certainly choose to be conduits of joy. We can cultivate an internal sense of gladness, and that's what Paul's writing about. By contrast, the fruit of the Spirit is joy, peace. He's not talking about a temporary emotion. He's talking about action, pointing to something that's cultivated within us by divine presence, something that endures. First and foremost, the fruit of the Spirit is a divine outflow that fills us and then in turn empowers us to be sources of joy and gladness and calm and peace in the world that desperately needs it. So let's look again at that advertisement. Your joy shows. What a nice reflection on you. After reading Paul, my hope is that we can see something more in that image. It's a powerful reminder of how we often think about joy. That it's something all about us, reflecting our happiness back to us. But God is calling us to be a by contrast people. By contrast, joy. A joy that isn't just about us. Something that we can't just keep bottled up. It's joy that we can pour out into the world, not just for spotless dishes, but about healthy rivers, about healthy communities, about lifting up people who in our community are knocked down, who are told that they're not good enough, people who are seen as blemishes and we try to wash them away. That's not the world that the Spirit is calling forth. And that's our call in the world as followers of Jesus Christ, to make a world that is joyful and points people towards a source of joy, which is God. So, let me wrap it up with this. How will your joy show in the world? Will it be just a reflection of your own private happiness? Or will it be a light, a calming presence, a joy-making force that brings gladness and peace and even justice to the lives of others in the world around you? Our call is to choose God's Spirit, allowing that Spirit to flow and make us truly a by contrast people in every corner of our lives. Amen.